All right, I brought a little show and tell. I don't usually do this, but I got a couple of props because I want them to serve as illustrations so that you'll remember, because I think from everything you've heard today, none of it really matters unless you do something with it. And they've asked me to talk about that. Unfortunately, you were supposed to get my much better half, Dr. Gina of the Dr. Gina Show. Thank you. And I am somewhat preaching to the choir today. You've heard that more than once, and you're hearing it from me. But I'm repeating it because I am thrilled that you're here. And just for being here, you should be proud of yourselves, because you could be doing other things. But hey, God gave you great weather, right? I mean, how nice is this? So there are intrinsic rewards for doing the right thing. But Gina's doing the right thing right now. Our family, she had a couple friends visit her, and it was really nothing short of an intervention. They said, look, you're the only one like you doing what you're doing. You're on the radio, a Christian woman exhorting people to political involvement to take back this country. You need to do more of it. And within like a week of that, she got the call, and they wanted her to expand her show into the South, which means she's temporarily moved to Birmingham. And she's now on 100,000 watts in a deep South and in St. Louis, expanding what she's doing. And it means that I've got 3 of our kids here. She's got 2 of them with her. We're sacrificing, but because this is the most critical year. And it's a critical cycle, because we are in a war. Is there any doubt we're in a war? Does anybody doubt for a second we're in a war? Good. Because, you know, I look at the namby-pamby reactions to what the radical Islam's doing. I say, wake up, we're in a war. Whether you like it or not, they're out to get us. You know, I've had a unique history like a lot of people, and maybe unlike a lot of people. Mine's been fairly dramatic. I went to school at Westminster College, site of the Berlin Wall. When my wife and I traveled on our honeymoon in 1990, we chopped on the Berlin Wall. I brought this back. I wanted to show you a piece of the Berlin Wall. It's a critical reminder, because this is what we're facing in our own country, and I believe little less. Before I get to that point, I want to ask you a question. How many of you have made up your minds about the presidential candidate that you want? Is anybody set? Raise your hand if you're set. Couple hands maybe? Okay. What if I told you, people who are set, that what you think doesn't really matter? How would that make you feel? Has anybody read the book by Phyllis Schlafly, A Choice Not an Echo? Have you read that? In A Choice Not an Echo, she lays out how your selection, your Republican nominee, and I know there may be Democrats here, this is not a party thing, but hey, if you're here with Obama, I'm sorry for you. Come talk to me after, I'll give you some re-education. No, your choice is made for you by a small cadre of kingmakers. They're Wall Street bankers, hedge fund managers, and super wealthy financiers that don't think you get a choice in who you pick. You get to echo their choice, the one they're making for you.
We're the Tea Party and we got a choice.
Well, collectively, you're getting right to my next point. Like no time like today, you do have a choice if you work together and you don't fight each other. So we have never had an opportunity like we have today. And that's what I want to talk to you about. The next thing I've got up here, this is an orb. This is a round orb. And it's a mnemonic device. I want you to remember this. I want you to remember the orb. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. You've got this regime is building a Berlin Wall. They are building walls. The characteristics of a totalitarian regime is that they wall people off, they limit choices, they limit movement, they imprison, and they coerce. This administration unlike any in our history. They are blocking, the National Labor Relations Board is blocking Boeing from creating 2,000 jobs in South Carolina because they think Boeing is not allowed to create jobs in a right-to-work state. They have to only create jobs in a forced union state. That is a wall. They ripped Chrysler and General Motors, two of our nations in the history, two of our proudest companies. My dad bought General Motors stock for me when I was 10 years old, for each of our brothers, and he said, "Son, you hold this forever. This will always be valuable. You can never take down General Motors." Your president ripped the companies away and gave them to the unions. That is a wall. They're crushing coal, they're crushing oil drilling, and when the desperate people of Arizona, as Representative Kurtman said earlier, when the desperate people of Arizona tried to defend themselves from the onslaught of illegal immigrants who are making Tucson, Arizona, or Phoenix, Arizona, rather, the kidnapping capital of the United States. You don't hear that much, but it's Mexican, illegal Mexicans kidnapping legal Mexicans because they have money. So those people are trying to defend legal Mexicans, and this crooked, crony, totalitarian federal regime, the Obama administration, put a wall around Phoenix and said, "You can't even defend yourselves." Those are walls of tyranny, and they must be ripped down. Now, I want to talk about the other enemy and then get to the orb. The other enemy is the one I mentioned earlier, the kingmakers. Those kingmakers want you to echo second worst. They want your choice to be Obama or a big government Republican. Now, how many of you, and let me just ask you a question, how many of you saw McCain after he had no performance in Iowa? Where did you see, did any of you see McCain coming as your nominee? No. How about this? There was one candidate in 1996, Republican candidate for president, who won every single, and I mean every single straw poll anywhere in the country that Republicans were gathered. From Alaska to Iowa to D.C. to CPAC, one guy won them all. Can you name him? Phil Gramm. Phil Gramm was the Democrat chairman of the Ways and Means Committee under Reagan. He passed Reagan's budget. The Democrats hated him. He said, "Well, heck with all of you." He resigned his seat and ran as a Republican. He's an economist, and he got torpedoed for Bob Dole that won no straw poll. There's only one way that happens. The kingmakers, financiers dried up Graham, and they gave all the money and all the resources to Dole. And they've got their candidate this time. And I'm just going to come right out and say it, and forgive me because I'm adding a little caveat to one of the points I'm going to make, and I'll apologize now. Your guy is Romney. If you like Romney, great. Happy election year for you. If you don't like Romney, then you got a choice to make. And now I want to get to the orb, and I'm wrapping up here. The orb stands for three things: organize, Reagan, and Buckley. I'm talking William F. Buckley. The first thing you do is organize. You know, a lot of people, some of you out there might think about running for office someday. That's great. Organize. Build your database. Make your friends. Make your money. Organize. Get on Facebook. Build your email list. Prepare. Step 2. Reagan, 11th commandment, thou shalt not attack another Republican. Patriots ought not be attacking other patriots, period. And I'm going to extend that. I was on a thread this week. I got called a statist. I got called a rhino. And I challenge anybody to come up with a lawmaker in Jeff City with a more consistently conservative record than mine. But it's people that don't understand this principle. That's why it's so critical. We've got to not be attacking each other. And when the left-wing media rips Sarah Palin, when the New York financiers are all over saying she can't be, she's not electable, you know, baloney. Don't echo that. Don't echo it. And you know what? I'm not thrilled about Perry in Texas, but he may be our guy. You know, I have issues with Pawlenty. He may be our guy. And Ron Paul, hey, you know, he's got passionate followers, and I want to speak for 1 second to those people because they're so forceful and so organized, and I really don't think you have a shot. But I love some of the things he stands for, and he's added to the debate. He needs to keep adding to the debate. But it's going to be really hard for the Ron Paul people because I know your character in your hearts. You love the guy, but if and when the time comes that you got to switch off your candidate, no matter who it is, switch and get behind the one, or you're getting Romney. But that starts with, thank you, that starts with sticking with Reagan's 11th commandment. Let's not let patriots attack fellow patriots. And finally, Buckley. William F. Buckley said famously, and we've used this a lot in the Tea Party movement. Who knows what I'm going to say? What did Buckley say? Support the rightward most viable candidate. Always support the rightward most viable candidate. And that means you may love your candidate who's farthest to right, but if they're not viable, I'm sorry. You've got to get behind the rightward most viable. Thank you. And you've got to do that early. We've got to do that early. So now, friends, learn the org. Organize. Reagan, Buckley. Stick with those principles. Start with organizing. Get on Facebook. Hey, my mother got on Facebook. If my mother can get on Facebook, you can get on Facebook. Join the groups and organize. Build your email list. Build your spreadsheet. Those are 3 things. Organize your subdivision. Organize. Remember Reagan's 11th commandment. Don't attack fellow Republicans. And finally, support the rightward most viable candidate and have the strength of character to put ego behind and hurt feelings behind, and at the right time, and you'll know it when it comes, rush behind the rightward most viable candidate. I'm going to suggest one last tactic. I really want you to remember the org. Remember these. Organize Reagan's 11th commandment, rightward most candidate Buckley. If you've got friends in Iowa, if you've got friends in New Hampshire, South Carolina, some of these critical early states, get them on your list. Rekindle that college relationship or high school. Keep in touch with those people because they do have a critical early role. Look at the Iowa primary. Think about going up to Iowa in the weeks and months ahead to help organize. You know, people in Iowa are used to everybody knocking on their doors. I mean, they get pounded and they like it. So think about making a trip to Iowa because we're right here in Missouri, and that's another tactic that you can do. I want to do one more.